Peace. This is Seneca. Today is Wednesday, October 3rd. We have a very special guest to talk about these stadium fiasco, the city's finances, all that city insider stuff. Of course, we're bringing back Scott Means, 20-plus year employee with the city of Oakland across various departments, his last role being a director of human services for the entire city. Scott is currently the president of the East Bay Foundation on Aging, and I brought him back because I need to ask somebody who knows how the city of Oakland works from the inside, what the heck is going on behind these doors with the stadium deal, with our budget, and all that good stuff. So welcome, Scott, back to the program. Good to have you.
Thank you. Good to see you, Seneca.
Thank you. How is it being away from the city, man? Did you have PTSD? Did you wake up in cold sweats at night about imagining you're back in Frank Ogawa, or is it all good?
Oh, I still wake up some mornings thinking about the things that need to happen. And, you know, I know from people who still work in the city that a lot of invoices aren't being paid to vendors, and, you know, the fires haven't gone out. So I do have concerns. I wish I could say I'm just sleeping like a baby every night, but, you know, my heart and soul is still into what's going on with Oakland.
Well, as is mine, and thank you for all of your hard work. So, all right, we're just going to get right to it. What in the world is going on with this stadium deal? Now, we know we celebrated it. Well, not us, but the mayor. She celebrated the stadium deal like 20, 30 times. We got a deal, we signed it. But I heard it wasn't really signed until closed session in City Council on the 23rd of September, quite recently. And now it appears that they've changed the terms yet again to allow for another extension to pay up on this money. However, that doesn't change our budget. And it looks like the city administrator says that the contingency plan has been enacted. So give me some quick thoughts on that, and then we're going to go both watch a video together from Johnny, District 4 City Council member, who has been one of the only watchdogs of the city's corruption, which has been a pleasant surprise. I didn't see this coming from the way that she campaigned, but you never know. Sometimes there are people who are adaptable or who have the city's best interest in mind as the job requires. So the floor is yours, Scott. Again, welcome back. And give me your quick thoughts from the hip on the stadium. We'll watch Johnny, and then we'll get into a little more detailed conversation about what do you think is going on with our budget.
Well, so we'll take it on good faith that the $5 million was paid. Okay, so we won't debate that. So even if the $5 million was paid, the amount of $15 million was actually owed, you know, by September 1st. And it sounds like they've tried to change the goalpost on that, saying that, you know, the last day is October 7th. But in any case, you know, we know the full amount has not been paid. We also know that there's another, under the current agreement, which is the only agreement that's actually legally binding, by the way, is that they're on the hook for another $15 million on November 1st. That means they would owe us a total of $25 million more dollars. And this is, when I say they, I mean AASEG.
In 29 days.
Yes, they would owe they owe us 25, the city of Oakland, $25 million. If they do not pay it, and this is kind of the political angle I look at it in, is if they do not pay it on November 1st, it would put the people who back this, who are elected officials, into a political tailspin right before the election, because it will mean that $25 million have not been paid, which should kick in additional contingencies. And, you know, we can get into what some of those are. Some of them are fairly drastic. And, you know, I would want to point out to the public that it hits, while it hits the police department really hard, there's over $30 million in reductions. It also hits the fire department. There's actually an $18 million 44 FTE fire department cut that would kick in also. And this would be political disaster, not only for the mayor, but also for Nikki Bass and Carol's wife, who are also running for office.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I don't think, I have some questions at the end about the election, but I don't think they're going to win anyway. And I have my theories on that. But to your point about the November surprise, which what this would be if they don't pay up. I've heard from some people that that's not exactly accurate. Actually, let me share this before I go through. Um, can you see? Can you read this?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so this is. Oh no, crap. Let
Oh
me.
no, that's
No,
the
no, 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 no. Let me.
that's the other can of
Uh,
worms.
I got something wrong thing. Okay, so let's take a look at this document here, and it may be a little hard to read, so I'm going to read through it. It is the city document signed on July 12th, or is it the 2nd? It's kind of hard to see there. About the actual stadium and timeline and contingency plan. And so it says further resolved that the city administrator is hereby authorized and directed to calculate all required set asides and make appropriate adjustments based on final adopted budget amendments and accompanying legislation as legally required, such as Kids First, Vital Services Stabilization Fund, and 7.5% emergency reserve. And be it the city administrator. Notice it doesn't say the mayor. This responsibility falls to the city administrator, which is why they seem to have said two different things in the last meeting. We'll get into that. Must obtain approval from city council before substantially or materially altering the relative department allocations of funding set in adopted policy budget. And two, substantially or materially changing the levels of service expressly prioritized and funded by the adopted policy budget, including but not limited to layoffs that would substantially or materially change levels of service, affected programs, and eliminate programs. Here's the important part. I'm going to skip a section. Further resolve. Oh, no, never mind. Let's read the whole thing. So every part is important. The city council hereby approves the contingency budget amendment to the adopted budget as presented in Exhibit 3. In this case, the $15 million from the sale of the Coliseum, if not received by September 1st, 2004. Or in the case that an additional 15 is not received by November 1st, 2024, like you just mentioned earlier, or in the case that the remaining $33 million is not received by January 15, 2025. Lastly, further resolved that if the $15 million from the sale of the Coliseum is not received by September 1st, what is today, Scott?
Well, it's October 3rd, Seneca.
Okay, this is signed by people, right? They voted on this. Or if the additional 15 million is not received by November 1st, or if the remaining 33 million is not received by January 15th, the city administrator is directed to freeze the hiring of new positions, delay the beginning of new sworn trainee academies, halt the execution of unfinalized contracts and grant agreements funded with the general purpose fund, and any restricted funds with structural imbalances, halt the approval of unapproved discretionary travel, take any other measures they may deem necessary to preserve the fiscal health of the city, and return to the city council a plan to rebalance the city's budget with expeditiously as reasonably possible. This is the city administrator's job. And ultimately, the responsibility falls on them and then the mayor because they're the one who hires them. This was passed by city council. Giannani, Gallo, and Reed voted no. Fife, Jenkins, Cobb, Kaplan, and Bass voted yes. Of course. This is a soggy divide. The only person who hasn't earned their puppet yet is Jenkins, and he's getting really close here because, as you see, he doesn't care about the health of a city to approve something like this. Now, is it correct that they're trying to change this deal and they have to vote on a new deal? Is that what's happening here? Or are they just violating their own policy as usual, like it means nothing?
Well,
What's going on here?
Those are good questions. There's two things that are happening. One is the mayor's office is insisting that they're still on track. So when the city administrator answered the council meeting that measures have been put into place, I believe that they have, other than some hiring freezes, that they haven't really put all of those measures into place. And one of them is actually problematic anyway, because if you notice, one of the measures was to halt any non-executed contracts. But we know from last fiscal year, and this continues this fiscal year, there are several agencies, particularly ones that are serving the homeless services work, that are currently have done work that they have not been paid for because their contracts have been delayed. So we actually have a legal obligation to pay these people once the contracts are executed. And if the city decides to negate their contracts, mid way through, what will end up happening is those agencies are going to sue the city for the money for the work they've already done. So that's not going to really work.
And when wage theft is a very serious thing, which is pretty much what it is, right?
And the courts will be very sympathetic to a nonprofit who's been stiffed by a government agency. If you look at the budgets that government agencies have, it's assumed that they should be able to pay.
Covered that, right? We covered that in the first interview. It was a long one, but I'll put it in the little video descriptor so people can link it. There are a lot of nonprofits who haven't been paid millions of dollars, who are performing critical services to the city of Oakland. So I want to watch Jonathan's interview real quick, because I think that it's important to hear from
Oakland City Council meeting,
about what's
and I
going
have some
on.
news to share. Tonight, I asked about what happened to the $15 million that the city was supposed to have received by now as part of payments for the sale of the Oakland Coliseum. And it's come to light that we have not received that money in time. Back in July, when the city council passed the budget, which even though I didn't vote for, passed, there was a provision that said, if we don't get that initial $15 million payment by September, we would have what's called a contingency budget go into effect by October 1st, today. What's a
We just talked about it. We just reviewed that document. For everyone watching, or if you just hopped in, or you skipped it for some reason, or you spaced out, or fell asleep, or whatever, rewind this video 5 minutes, and you can review that contingency document for us. You will see that Janani did not sign it.
contingency budget? A contingency budget is an alternative budget that goes into effect if something doesn't happen. So, for example, we said that we were going to get money for sale of the Coliseum, and that money would be used to fund all of our city's basic services in our general fund. The fact that that condition hasn't happened, leading to this budget where we're going to have to be forced to make a lot of cuts. I don't know what this contingency budget is going to look like in effect, because it was supposed to go into effect today. But what we were told.
Whoa, what happened?
Hi, it's Councilmember Ramachandran, and we just
Well, maybe the video's not complete, but you get the gist of it. But I'm actually going to pull up a news story, because I want to review one more thing with the audience before we get into this discussion. And that way everyone's caught up. We've looked at the actual budget that was signed. We can hear from elected officials, mind you, who seem to be just in the dark as we are about the conditions of this sale. So let's watch this video, and then we'll get into a more in-depth discussion. I want your responses to this, because I didn't quite follow this when I saw it, and how can I even do this? And what are the implications for us as taxpayers and people who live in Oakland, and what we can expect to see as a result of whatever the heck is going on right now.
In the sale of the Oakland Coliseum, there is a lot riding on the deal to sell the city's stake to a private developer, as it's relying on the money to deal with a major budget deficit and avoid painful cuts. But now we have confirmed there's a new timeline for the African American Sports and Entertainment Group to deliver that money. It comes after some Oakland City Council members sounded the alarm, saying the developer missed its second payment. And they told our Katie Nielsen they feel like they're being kept in the dark.
The reason there is so much focus on the
Now, Scott, you've been watching the discourse before I continue this video. Haven't I been saying this for months now? For months,
Yeah.
haven't I been saying we didn't get the money? I mean, not months because we weren't owed the money, but since September 1st, I've been saying, where's the money? No one's reporting on it. Why is the media not reporting on it? It's been over a month. It's been weeks. Am I crazy? What's going on, man?
Yeah, well, no, you're not crazy, of course, because I mean this deal is meant to bail the city temporarily out of a fiscal crisis. And while I actually don't agree with selling permanent assets to temporary fix a systemic problem, and we get in some other show, we can get into like how would be better ways to fix things and what needs to actually happen. But the fact is that for the citizens of Oakland, for the people of Oakland, they need that money now to keep services running. And the fact is that they haven't met the timelines. And so either they need to be pressured into making those timelines, or the city needs to start the budget cuts now. I don't know, is it too early to talk about what the proposed change is, or do you want to wait?
No, I want to hear what they have to say so I can ask some of my questions. But thank you. That's a perfect segue.
on the sale of the Coliseum is because the stakes are just that high. Without the money from the sale, the city's budget isn't balanced. They would have to cut $63 million, which would mean massive cuts to police and fire.
Why couldn't we get the $10 million when it was due in September 1st? Like, that's what really concerns me.
Oakland Council member Janani Ramachandran says she still wants the deal with AASEG to go through. But right now, she's more worried about how to balance the city's budget since the group hasn't made the first $10 million payment, something she says the mayor refuses to talk about.
Why are you leaving council members in the dark? What's going on with the contingency effect? Are we going to see fire stations browned out tomorrow? Are we going to see a drop in officers? And those are my questions.
Ray Bobbitt is the founder and managing partner of AASEG. He says the deal is still on track and their group is in the final stages of negotiating an amendment to the original sales deal, a plan to pay the city the $10 million in the next 5 days. The original purchase sale agreement was signed at the end of August. It called for 4 payments totaling $63 million between September 1st and January 15th. The amended AASEG proposal would provide the city with one $10 million payment on October 7th, then pay the full balance of $95 million no later than June 30, 2025. That's also an increase in the sales price from $105 million to $110 million.
We increased the price slightly just because it was important for us to move quicker through the process.
He says AAS.
That makes no sense. How
Quicker?
does increasing the price have anything to do with moving quicker through a process? Cut the fucking check, Ray. Cut the check, bro. We need cops in the street, man. We need ambulances and stuff. We need our services. You're playing games with public safety. You're playing politics to make it quicker. You increase the price of the sale. My theory is because there's a lot of questions about why the price is so low, why there's such a gap between, and he tried to explain it because of the due diligence that the A's did. No, how much is the stadium worth? We haven't even gotten appraisal. These people think it's just.
According to the market, it's at least worth 120 because that's what the A's sold it for. So
they got a
right?
125.
125. Okay, yeah. Thank you. So it's worse, but yeah.
So 250.
I want to make sure that the audience heard something though in this last part. If you noticed, what they talked about was that the cuts to police and fire would be $63 million. Okay. So the initial payment is 15 million, another one of 15 million in November, and 33 million was due in January. That's exactly $63 million between now and
And we're
January.
depending on every penny of that money. And anytime it's delayed, we don't have money in the bank technically to pay for these services. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. And also just to kind of, to look at, if the city only receives $15 million now, and the promise amount is 95 in June. And I thought initially it was May. June's worse, because if for any reason they're unable to pay or they default, it will be too late to make budget adjustments. And so the audience understands the city does a 2-year policy budget and then does a mid-cycle budget. But in between that, the city's also able to do mid-year budgets. And in the past, like during a recession or other economic times, this just happened the last few years, is they may freeze positions in order to compensate for shortages in the budget in January. It's actually, the city does have the power to do a mid-year budget adjustment, right? So if they didn't pay in January in the current agreement, there would still be 6 months to do some changes in order to compensate for the lack of funding. By waiting till June, there's no way to do that. The money's already been spent.
And so they're playing. Why do you know what? Let's watch the rest of it before I ask my questions. But I have some questions I've written down based on that. And thank you for giving that update. So I think they're going to discuss the contingency, or they're going to just do another vote, or Shing Tao needs 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 chances on everything, right? So maybe she needs to do
AASEG's
over
main
on this
concern with the payment plan arrangement in the original contract was that if something catastrophic happened to the city and they filed for bankruptcy, the group would basically lose all their money. The amended agreement would allow the group to take ownership of the property immediately after that lump sum payment is made. She's not sure why the city council members weren't told about the proposed changes.
Oh, they think
It sounds like
bankrupt.
there was just a miscommunication between the city divisions.
But Ramachandra says the deal with AASEG is a different contract than the city budget. The budget requires the city to cut spending if the AASEG payments aren't made on time. But she says the city administrator and the mayor's office aren't disclosing which cuts they're making first.
Contingencies have begun to kick in that they are starting to make cuts. We, of course, want to know, what are those cuts? Are they going to be the big dramatic cuts to public safety? Is it going to be something softer? And we don't know that.
Oakland Mayor Sheng Tao denied our request for an interview today, but her office released a statement yesterday saying the AASEG deal is on track and that no contingencies have been triggered that weren't already in place.
Duh, the contingencies were in place. These people
they're in place.
Talk with so much double talk.
Well, she uses the word on track in the same way she takes public safety seriously. That it's like that term has happened so many times it ceases to have meaning. What do they mean by it's on track?
On track. She's on track to get recalled up out of Oakland. That's what she's on track to do in 33 days. Since we're talking about 33 today, 33 days, Teletubbies is gone up out of here. Let's watch the rest of this video. I get so upset that this lady has to. I'm sorry. What's up, Scott?
Bobbitt I just want to point out also, Bobbitt says a lack of communication, but it's really disinformation and lack of transparency.
Yes, absolutely.
Really coming out of the mayor's office, yes.
Absolutely. And intentionally so. She knows that any bad press this close to her recall I don't know how many nails in the coffin she needs. She's already got 1,000 nails in her coffin. Unless she's like the lady in Kill Bill who can punch through the coffin. This lady's death. I don't think just her political death, but I think her career death. Who in the world would want to hire such this dishonest person and put them anywhere near something that they hold dear? It's really.
Bobbitt also questions whether some of this controversy is actually politically motivated because Oakland's mayor, Sheng Tao, is facing a recall on the November ballot.
So the question remains, what's going to happen?
That projection is so comical. Here we go with that Darville again. They're the victim. It's politically motivated. Ray, you haven't cut the check, bro. I hear that Ray Bobbitt cannot raise the money. And we're going to get into why I think he can't raise the money out for this.
Happened to the Coliseum after the A's leave town. We spoke to Bobbitt last week about his group's
Oh, I don't care
vision.
about that. Okay. Anyway, here's what I think is. What's up, Bubba? I want your thoughts. It's your interview.
Okay, I just want you said the thing about cutting the check. So I don't want to be accused of fear mongering, but I just want to point this out because I like looking at contingencies. My whole career, I've always looked at scenarios and contingencies, and you want to be ready for the worst case scenario. I was FEMA trained in disaster management, so I'm hardwired to think this way, right? So the other issue is by punting this $95 million to June, is that my fear is that they won't have that either, and they're going to be asking for further concessions. And the more and the deeper the city gets into this, the longer they're involved in this and not getting paid, it becomes like a tar pit, right? Because they've accepted some money. $15 million is still a significant amount, and they can't pay the 95. They want to negotiate again, or they want to maybe pay 30 million a year over the next 3 years, right? This can keep going.
They just
on
keep changing
and
the
on.
term. No,
Yeah,
they're not though. They're not though, because we're going to recall Ching-Tao. We're going to kick out this idiot city attorney's department and Barbara Parker and Ryan Richardson. And once Judge Brenda's in there, she's going to shut all that down. We're not doing that, God willing. 33 days, you got to work hard to make that happen. But that's what's at stake here. What's at stake here is having responsible people who are not corrupt to actually stop things like this. The city attorney's office has the power to stop this right now, because they have to approve the terms of these deals and protect the city of Oakland from being sued. So, yes, I have a theory, Scott. I have a theory. So I've covered this before on the show, but it's always worth bringing back so everybody can get the history. And we're going on almost 30 minutes, so I'm going to try to make this a little concise. But there's a document right here. And this document is directly related to the stadium. And here's why. What this document represents is this court decision just last month. I think it was August 26th of 2024, so 2 months ago. Insight Terminal Solutions, who is related to the whole no coal in Oakland and the coal deal and all the lawsuits. We don't have time to go back through it. They went bankrupt. And the reason they went bankrupt, they're alleging, is that because the city of Oakland paid for lawyers, expensive law firms in Kentucky and San Francisco, outside of our own city attorney's department, and they blocked this bankruptcy out of spite because there was no interest in the city of Oakland. And they blocked it by claiming that there was never a legitimate lease. Now a judge has ruled that the lease was legitimate. The city has lost the lawsuit to Phil Tagami and Mark McClure and California Partner Group over the coal in Oakland that we've wasted tens of millions of dollars on and lots of time. We lost that lawsuit. Now a judge has granted a motion for a Rule 2004 examination of the city of Oakland. Are you aware of this legal proceeding, Scott?
Yes, and I want to thank you. I knew some things about peripherally, but you actually filled me in on some of the details. So this goes back to the possibility that the city of Oakland, could suffer a severe financial penalty, and that whole risk of bankrupting the city because of it is there.
Yes, absolutely. So this next page pretty much says what I just said. They filed for an order against the city saying that they had monetary damages. It claims were caused by the city's interference with the debtor's third-party contract pertaining to the construction of a proposed rail-to-ship terminal. The debtor asserts that the city's actions caused the debtor's bankruptcy filing and that its actions interfered with the debtor's third-party contract, resulting in monetary losses of no less than $1 billion fucking dollars. In this case, the debtor filed a motion for a Rule 2004 examination of the Sierra Club, Sierra Club is directly involved with the No Colin Oakland fight. They did a lot of the organizing and paid for that. In this case, they granted that. We also filed. I'm sorry, not we. They also filed for a motion against the city of Oakland for a Rule 2004 examination of the Sierra Club, and that was granted. Here's why. The debtor seeks an order to allow it to conduct this Rule 2004 examination. I don't know if it's Rule 2004 or 2004. 2004 is a year, so I kind of like, I say it both ways. Any lawyers out there want to let me know how to say it, so I'm consistent. But if I'm saying it two different ways, that's why I don't know what the hell is legal shit. I'm not a lawyer. But the examination of the city of Oakland, the debtor states that the scope of examination will be limited to its purpose. Here's the big one. Here's the big one. Here's the big one. It's to investigate the city's material transaction, such as the contemplated sale of the Oakland Coliseum. The debtor contends that the city's actions warrant investigation of the questionable transactions to determine whether they may constitute avoidable post-petition financial transactions under 549A of the United States Bankruptcy Code. Let me unpack that for you from my non-lawyer perspective, and I've run this through the filters of my lawyer friends, including Judge Brenda, who's running for city attorney, who you should vote for, in addition to Chief Armstrong for at-large. Okay. This judge, we're going to sue for $1 billion. And they're saying, hey, if we win this lawsuit against Oakland for any amount, of $1 billion, 100 million, 50 million, and keep in mind, we're just talking about how on thin ice we are financially. We're waiting and begging for a $10 million check, begging and pleading. We need this $10 million, Ray Bobbitt, please. We don't want to cut police. These motherfuckers about to hit us with like a, let's just say it's a $50 million judgment. Tiny, which could be a loss. That would be a win for Oakland to escape this. To grant this examination means that it's very likely we're going to lose this lawsuit. And the judge is setting up our asset to determine how to get money for these people. Would you agree, not that you're a lawyer, but with your higher level of municipal finance experience and acumen, would you agree that there's merit to my hypothesis? And what do you think about this? And I left this up there for people to read it themselves. But what do you think about this? This just seems to be big to me, and it's going to completely ignore it. And the fact that the city of Oakland is being sued to this magnitude, and now a company from a judge all the way in freaking Kentucky, which is close to Ohio, where I'm from, that's pretty far away, man. And they're like, no, you can peek under the hood and find out whatever you want. But there are questionable transactions, and they're alleging it may constitute avoidable post-petition financial transactions. So they're trying to hide some money or play some games so they don't have to fork over certain things. Anyway, I'm going to shut up and give you the floor, my good friend, Mr. Means. Give us your thoughts to Gotham Oakland listeners. Don't hold anything back. You are allowed to put a tinfoil hat here. We're not going to get sued or nothing. Not accusing anyone of anything. If you accuse someone of a crime, don't worry, I just won't run it. I protect us from libel. Don't worry about that. But what's going on, man? What's going on? What do you think?
Well, unfortunately, I've been involved in litigation against the city at various times in my employment, and seen lawyers take various tactics. And one of my concerns with this particular one is if they decide they could put a lien on the sale if they feel like the city may try to get away with not paying damages due to, what is the term they like to use? A financial, they don't use a financial crisis. There's another, we were talking about this earlier today. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting.
Fiscal emergency? Is it fiscal emergency?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. But it's one of those.
Some official name, yes.
Yeah. They stopped short of saying it's an emergency, anyway, so the concern here is too that they could lien this sale, and so basically the city would be selling the Coliseum, and the money would just go directly to this company in Kentucky.
So they were bankrupt.
Yeah, well, so they could freeze the judge could freeze the funds so that we can't spend them because we're liable to pay this company damages. And that is concerning that this lawsuit is hanging over our heads at the same time that this deal is actually being made.
Well, here's my hypothesis then. Why would anyone invest in this deal until there's some resolution on this lawsuit?
Oh, of course. Yes, I see what you're saying. So why would you're talking about a third party that's neither AASEG or
think
the
this
city
is
of
why
Oakland
I
yet?
think this is why Ray can't raise money. I think Bobbitt can't raise money because, put it like this, for those of you out there, which is the vast majority of our listeners, but not all, I heard a few billionaires watch the show, but for us poor people, us serfs who don't have any money to buy stadiums, which is all of us for the most part, let me explain to you how the financial elite work, or if you work for a hedge fund, which is a small percentage of us. You don't put capital in a place where I don't have as much guarantee as I can that it's going to be put to work. And by be put to work, mean make me money.
Right.
And so if I invest in this project and it gets lean and I can't continue it or it gets delayed, we're not even talking about Oakland's public safety crisis here. And the fact that this area is still in a very bad area to do business, where we're losing the Hilton and we've lost the In-N-Out, and it's pretty much a dead zone. Now, that dead zone presents opportunities for an ambitious developer, but you got to have people willing to go down there and buy things. So
Yes.
if you know that this lawsuit's looming and the city of Oakland could potentially even go bankrupt, which means it's going to have less support and services or entitlements for a developer to get a cushy deal, I would never want to hold tens of millions of dollars over there when it could be put to use making me money, right? Like my money always has to be working. I'm not gonna. That's just not efficient use of capital. To
No, there's
to
gonna be
put it
less.
somewhere, and so I wouldn't invest in that project if I knew. And of course, they know about this lawsuit because they watch Gotham Oakland. Everybody watches Gotham Oakland. They know about the lawsuit. No, I'm just joking. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But any competent business person is going to have a lawyer who's going to be vetting this, and any person who's properly vetting this Coliseum deal has to know about this case. And if you don't, then it's amateur hour, and you should be hiring me or somebody else to do this work for you. What do you think about that, man? What are your thoughts? And then we're gonna.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean,
and then wrap it up.
Yeah, well, I mean, people who have money want to make more money, and they want to know that there's going to have a solid deal, that what they invest in is going to give them a return. And we could get into the whole Howard Terminal deal and some of the waffling that was being done by elected officials around that, and some other business deals in the past that have fallen through. The Bay Street in Emeryville was supposed to be in Oakland at first. But that was another whole crop of elected officials that tanked that deal, Bayfront and Emeryville. So this is something that's been systemic of Oakland electeds. And it's just amplified, right? Because in addition to them not being very good at the art of the deal, they're also trying to defund public safety.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to
deny it. They don't say it anymore. They just do it. They stop the virtue signaling because it's not popular. But yeah, the policies are still pretty much, we're going to cut public safety and police.
Is it okay if I just bring up another kind of part to this too, that really hasn't been discussed, and it has to do with the development service fund?
By all means, good sir.
Okay. So I first want to just refer people, because I think it's important for the public to have transparent information. If you do a Google search, Oakland Development Service Fund audit report, you can pull up the audit report. So the performance Oakland Development Service Fund audit report. Audit report. What that is, it's a fund that developers pay to the city whenever new development happens, right? And that's an expectation of any development. That would be an expectation of the development of the Coliseum complex. Okay, so this is more long-term financial liability with the city. I'm actually going to refer now to a tweet of yours, Seneca. I hope you don't mind, from September 26th, and you quoted a Chronicle story, and I'm just going to read this. The AASEG will rely on Loop to raise money from institutional capital partners and on public funding from the city of Oakland and the county to cover infrastructure costs for the development. The developers also are likely to seek public funding to complete their project, possibly in the form of financing district that would be used for taxpayers' dollars to pay for infrastructure improvements. And at the time, I made this
so basically EIFDs.
Yeah, and I made the snarky comment that this is just like a pro sports franchise owner expecting the taxpayers to pay a portion. But the difference is that most professional, in fact, all the professional sports franchises I know actually pay the rent on time. They don't stiff people for the $15 million issue. But in reality, the problem is that there's a deficit in this fund, and we know that one of the issues with the deficit is that the city has not been receiving these development funds, and so the development of the Coliseum would add significantly to that fund. And if they're expecting the city instead to waive and or pay those funds, you're actually sort of double dipping into something that's already in a crisis, right? Because not only are you not feeding that fund to pay for the essential, services of building, you have to go through approval processes and you have to pull permits and all the whole building thing. It also, some of that fund also goes to affordable housing and to fund homelessness issues. So not only are you not paying into that, but you're actually taking money out of the city's system, right, in compensation, because AASEG doesn't have that funding. So that's an additional long-term financial issue that really concerns me about the deal and as it progresses through the development stage after the sale is complete.
So I put that up there so people who are listening, it sounds like, and it makes perfect sense, AASEG plans to seek and utilize public funds, taxpayer dollars, for the build out for its extremely ambitious multi-billion-dollar project. But I recall one of the biggest criticisms is that we don't want to give billionaires public funds to build stadiums. But it looks like we're going to be conned into doing just that. Just not John Fisher, who I don't like or have much love for, but let's keep it real. I'm in Jack London right now where my office is. I'm walking around yesterday. Beautiful, one of the most beautiful places in Oakland. We were supposed to have a stadium in Howard Terminal. And had they made the Howard Terminal deal happen, the A's wouldn't be going anywhere. And that was pure politics. They killed that deal. Everything was laid out. There was significant benefit to the city. Nothing's perfect. Yes, there were some parts of it, like the tram or trolley or whatever, that was sort of ridiculous. But for the most part, it was a very solid plan, and any other city that encourages commerce, unlike Oakland, which seems to hate business and think that money comes from a magical spaghetti god in the sky who gives it to progressive causes, because that's what they get from Quinn Delaney and Wayne Jordan. They get blank checks from political operatives, so they don't really understand how things work in the real world. It leaves us in this type of situation we have now, which is a very unfortunate one. And so I have a couple. You don't vote in Oakland, right? You live in Alameda?
Right, I do.
Have you? So I don't like asking people who don't vote here who they should vote for, but you have a different perspective. So I think that, considering you're not too far away, you spend a lot of time in Oakland, what are your thoughts about the upcoming election? What do you think people should do on the recall, city attorney, District 3, District 5, at large, and District 7? I'm sure you're aware of the candidate. If you don't want to speak on it, it's all good. If you have anything you want to say about the election and why, take a few minutes to talk about that. I'm sure people
Well,
want to hear from you, like what's going on.
Okay, I appreciate you saying that. I want to stop short of actually endorsing or talking about specific candidates, but looking at the entire landscape more. And the thing is that with Oakland, one nuance I want to get into also is that at the end of the day, city council is the administration. People think is the administration the mayor, but it's really city council, because what happens during budget processes is that the mayor proposes a budget, but city council ultimately can tweak it and change it the way they want to. And they're the ones who really drive the city. As much as we have on paper a strong mayor in Oakland, it's really city council is empowered is really empowered. So the current administration really you can really go back to, really 2018, 2020. It's really is really before that. And we see a lot of the current people who are currently running for office are actually part of that administration. Many of the city council members, and then of course, the mayor who is just, voted in recently. And so if Oaklanders are concerned about the state of the city, that is something that they can actually do something about. They can actually vote and actually look at the people who have been representing them and what has happened to the city under their leadership and representation. Not only from the mayor, but also from the city council, the president of city council, and all their associated groups that they're actually working closely with, to maintain their power. And so I would go that far to say that I really encourage people that your vote does really matter in Oakland. Whatever you are passionate about with the city, it won't change with the same leadership is continuously put in power. Things will continue to stay the same. And if you're happy with the way things are, if you really hate in and out, if you think that it's great that you can't go anywhere without safety issues in Oakland, then that's maybe you do like the current administration. Maybe that's what you want, and the lack of also just the lack of transparency with the public is also like an ongoing issue. No one's going to be perfect. Not any administration is perfect, but we've never really seen anything like the way things are now. And I was with the city for 20 years, over 20 years. The first mayor I worked under was Brown. There's been peaks and valleys, right? People have brought up, Dellums. And I would agree that Dellums probably went a bridge too far in terms of his career. He probably should have retired instead of trying to serve as mayor for 4 years.
No, they hit it with the run.
But there wasn't but I want to point out, he won the election with no ranked choice voting. He won more than 50% of the vote without a runoff. So he was a legitimate
Who was he
mayor.
running against? Ignacio?
Yes, Ignacio. And he won legitimately. And I would call his era more of an underperformance. It was underwhelming and underperformance, but no one felt like they were being put in danger or lacking transparency in his office. It just, things didn't really move, right? So there's a big difference between then and now, where, contracts are not actually getting through. People aren't getting served. Information is not being provided to the public. Financial deals are being made that are not being followed through on and may not even be completely legal. These things are all coming to the forefront, and those things didn't exist back then. So
just telling me that there was no corruption before this administration. Come on now, Scott.
Well, I'm not saying there wasn't any corruption. I mean, there certainly is going to be corruption. I would say there's going to probably be some corruption in any mayor's office. And, there are some organizational things that happened under Libby Schaaf that we could talk about too. But, if you throw a rock in class and hit someone in the head with that rock, it's not, you don't get off free for doing that by saying, well, someone did it yesterday. It still was the wrong thing to do. right?
Oh, I said
So
that's a great analogy. I say it all the time to people who want to talk about previous corruption. Like, it doesn't excuse this administration, and just because other mayors may have been justifiably recalled, and there just wasn't a talented enough organizer or a passionate enough group of organizers or people to do it, which I don't think is the case. I think the reason Shing is being recalled because everything you just said, she's just that terrible, and she's just that unlikable. She won with the least amount ever. Less than 1/3 of Oakland thought that she was the best choice to be our mayor, and to conduct herself with such callous disregard for her lack of a mandate, um, to act like a bully and a middle schooler. It's really done considerable harm to Oakland. It's done a lot of harm to our pride, our dignity. We have to get our self-respect back. We will not respect ourselves until we get rid of this failed mayor. And you brought up a really important thing. My next episode is about where did Oakland go wrong? And quick preview, I believe it went wrong with the passing of Measure X in 1998 and the election of Jerry Brown. And what Jerry Brown did had very, very bad unintended consequences. Now, he may not have wanted to go to city council meetings or whatever his motivation was from changing from a city manager model to a hybrid system of government, which is the true sense of what Oakland has. We don't have a strong mayor. We have a hybrid sense of government, which is a very unique city charter only to Oakland. I've never seen a city charter like this, where our mayor lacks legislative veto, our mayor lacks line item veto, and we have an even numbered city council. Where did I learn this? In 2020 to 2021, November, I believe, Spur put out a report making government work about Oakland, giving recommendations to move to a traditional strong mayor form of government, which gives the mayor line item veto and budget veto, which as a controller to Oakland that has ability to stop things if there's no money for it, so we don't do stupid stuff like we're doing now, and also either adds or eliminates one of the at-large positions because it's an even number body. It's a clumsy democracy. And so since there's no clear delineation of powers in Oakland, that we actually do have deep-rooted structural issues. And so here's my hypothesis that I'm going to seek to prove on the next episode. You get a preview, you're in luck if you're listening now, then we're going to wrap it up so me and Scott can go about our day. I got to get some work in to recall this mayor. Check it out. In order for Oakland to work efficiently, that means that we move quickly in terms of our bureaucratic functions, our budget and all of that, and there's no infighting. The mayor has to be aligned with the city council. We've only had that 2 times since you've worked for Oakland and since Jerry Brown's been elected. We've only had that 2 times. One was when Jerry Brown was mayor. He had Ignacio de la Fuente, and he was the heavy as the city council president, and he could always deliver a majority votes. And their budgets got passed quickly. And Oakland started building up downtown, and they brought in 10,000 new apartments or whatever their plan was. And it worked. And it started to restore Oakland to economic prosperity. Some argue it ushered in a new wave of gentrification. The point is, Oakland went from having less money to more money. Oakland went from being less safe to more safe. And they moved quickly. And most people consider Jerry Brown's tenure a net positive for the city of Oakland. When Shing Tao was elected, for only the second time in 2 decades, was the mayor perfectly aligned with the council.
Mhm.
This time it was a progressive's turn. And with the speed of light, they collapsed this city. They finally got control of it, and they enacted their plan. And I think their plan went exactly as they expected. What they didn't expect was for the people to finally step up and organize and start to speak for ourselves, find new political funders who weren't in the marketplace before. And it's driving them crazy because, they don't get to have any money. We're the only ones who get to have money. We don't want a level playing field. We want to dictate and determine what the airwaves say. It doesn't matter what KTVU says or how many times they have Sing Tao for one-on-one. It doesn't matter what Oakland site prints. More people are watching formats like mine. More people are clicking on Oakland State of Mind. More people are listening to what their neighbors say and seeking alternative media because they know that they're being lied to, because what they're being told obviously doesn't match what they're seeing and feeling, and they've completely overestimated and overplayed their hand, I believe. But we have to change that charter, and I'm going to make a case for it on my next episode. Hopefully you watch it, and if you like this episode, please like, comment, subscribe. Scott, thank you for coming on. Got any closing words?
I want to clean up. You called me a little bit on something, and I appreciate that. I think, we need to be able to do that with each other, honest and open conversation. And I wasn't really trying to imply that there was no corruption before. I think that the words I was struggling to find when I was talking about the administrations is chaos. That's the difference, because there's always going to be some corruption in government, but for staff to experience the amount of chaos that exists now.
Oh, you're right. Really, it's completely different. This is not just, can I add dysfunction, or is that part? Yes. Is that like a like chaos? You can you're
connecting the dots, my friend. You're just
all the synonyms, all of them. It's a disaster. It is an unmitigated disaster. This is what happens when you have people as woefully unqualified, mean-spirited, corrupt. It's just it's the worst combination to have in a leader. And I really hope that Sing Tao finds herself after this experience. I hope that she has her own spiritual awakening and can continue her life with meaning. Her life is by no means over. And I'm making joke when I say her career is over, but it's definitely over if she doesn't have that awakening. I don't think anyone's going to want to deal with this person. She's going to have a long seat somewhere, and unfortunately for her, she doesn't have enough money to have that seat, and she still has to deal with the FBI and the IRS and the U.S. Postal Service raiding her home, and you don't get to raid someone's home without probable cause. Anyway, we could go on all day. But I already got the balloons. Once you see the balloons, I got to wrap it up. That means I
know. Thank you so much, Seneca, for having me on again. I enjoyed it.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for coming back on and having me be your host. And everyone who's still watching and still listening, thank you as always for sitting through this program. Share it with your friends. I would chop up the video into smaller portions so we can get the more spicy points out. Because we got some spicy points in the middle. But I do like the deep policy conversations, and that's really what I'm here for. I want people to have somewhere where they can go and learn and see things that the news even doesn't have the time to show. They can't put together these hypotheses because they have to be very careful not to get sued because of the gravity of being a news network. Or, in the case of like KTVU, they're just soggy. With that being said, peace for real this time. I love you guys. See you next time.
All right. See you later.
Yo, I swear it's only up from here. Yo, I swear it's only up from here. Yo, I swear it's only up from here. Yo, I swear it's only up from here.